Good afternoon. Today is Monday, the 20th of October, 2025, just after 1 o'clock. Welcome to UK Column News. I'm your host, Brian Gerrish. With me in the studio, Ben Rubin. And we're delighted to have Diane Rasmussen and our very own Sandi Adams joining us by live link today. Now, we have got a packed news. There is so much happening. Plus, we wanted to get a report of the UK Column on Location event in York. We wanted to include something on that as well. And then, of course, today, the world has collapsed as a result of problems with Amazon. So we've got a lot in today's news and protests going on. We've got some good news from Denmark. We're going to take people on a little bit of a roller coaster, but we promise that we'll end today's news on a high. Let's just start off with, sorry, something went wrong our end. And no, it's not the UK column. This is Amazon's back end for so many websites. And the key statement from Amazon was that they said the problem appears to be related to DNS resolution of the Dynamo DP API endpoint in US-East-1. If you don't understand what that means, and of course many of us don't fully, but as far as I understand, this is to do with addressing, and there was a major problem and it's caused chaos, really. If we talk about national security, Ben, I look at this sort of thing and I'm thinking that if we continue this mad drive for power into private companies, we're going to get a collapse of not only daily life, but actually security of the nation state. So if we can just pop that one back on screen, I just wanted to add here that if it's been a problem with Zoom and other platforms today, by the time the government gets going with our digital ID and digital life, that's also going to be collapsed when these systems go down.
Absolutely, yes. And it's this specific system as well, because we've been talking about AWS, Amazon Web Services, now underpinning increasing amounts, probably the majority, I would say, at this point, of British government IT infrastructure. In fact, the guy that ran artificial intelligence at Amazon went into the UK government as the chief digital officer for 12 months to embed them as a supplier and to extend that contract. So if that one partner goes down, then the whole state goes down. And, I'm not a massive fan of the state and state delivery of services, but it does feel like that could cause rather a problem for us, actually.
So lots of questions, and we'll be onto those questions in forthcoming news editions, but we're going to leave that there. Let's get on to positive things. In the course of the weekend, we had really big demonstrations about digital ID, and you've got some images for us here, Ben.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, so we were up in York over the weekend having a fantastic time, and there were lots of other things going on around the country as well. So Katie Jo Murphin from Hope Sussex went up to London. She sent us back some fantastic images and a few little video clips from the Digital ID March, which is actually very closely linked into the AWS issue, actually, because if Amazon goes down, the Digital ID network goes down, then how is anything going to happen? And it does seem to be the issue that's united the nation, actually. Like we've got a whole bunch of different types of people out there on the street. You can see here in central London, lots of different campaigning groups, starting off at Marble Arch. And the sound is, it sounds like there was someone on the street with an air raid siren, actually. So we've decided to just play these out so we can get a little bit of a visual of what was happening rather than listening to the noise, because it was quite overwhelming. And but you can see here a really good turnout, actually, and very reminiscent of the lockdown marches through 2020 and 21. A lot of the same kind of people, a lot of the same kind of messages being shared, a similar kind of feel. And you can see them here making their way down Oxford Street, ending up obviously at Downing Street, and chanting some rather choice words, shall we say, about Keir Starmer and his government.
But this is real passion and informed people. And of course, what is needed is more and more people, not just millions signing up online. We need millions of people saying on the streets and everywhere, no, we're not having this digital ID, because it's people at ground level that can stop it dead in its tracks.
Yeah, absolutely. And the key thing for me is that while these marches are a good thing to happen, and certainly enjoyable to go on and create a great sense of camaraderie, this is the issue that appears to be uniting the nation. And actually, we've got to get out and talk to our neighbours and people in our local areas about this. You know, I think that's also a crucial part of stopping this thing in its tracks. And actually, we had a fantastic little clip here from Andrew Bridgen, who was out there on the street, who summed things up perfectly.
Okay, Andrew Bridgen, how do you feel about today's march?
Well, as always, lovely people. It's probably a better turnout than I thought we were going to get, and it's not raining, so we can't really do much better in Starmer's Britain than that. It's a really important issue. Digital ID is a trap, and if we end up in a trap, it's better to avoid the trap than to try and get out of it once we're in it. And I honestly believe that if we say yes to digital ID, we'll be in a position where we'll never be able to say no to anything the government wants ever again, because it will lead to a social credit scoring system. Yeah. That's the model they're aiming for, central bank digital currency. The government will have complete knowledge and control over everything we do. And that's unacceptable. We'll be giving away our freedom and our rights and our privacy, and we'll be giving away those freedoms and rights for future generations who are not here to make that decision, and it's not for us to give those rights away.
Fantastic.
Absolutely key point, giving away of rights. If we give our rights away, we've only got one person to blame, and that's ourselves, each and every one of us. Brilliant effort by people who are out on the streets, and also great to see people like Andrew Bridgen there. Diane, let's bring you in, because we've also got more activity on digital ID in Newcastle coming up.
Yes, thanks, Brian. It's great to be here today. I think we should note as well that at the march on Saturday, we had UK Column's Patrick Henningsen there as one of the speakers, which is why he unfortunately couldn't join us in York because of the conflict. But on the 1st of November, we will be having another event here in Newcastle at the Monument, talking about the digital ID issue, and I will be one of the speakers there. So I would love to see as many people up here in the north as we had in London over the weekend. So please join us on the 1st.
Diane, thank you very much for that. And we'll just pop this ad on screen here for, if we can just bring this one up. 1st of November, 12 noon at the Monument, Newcastle. Protect privacy, protect freedom, reject digital ID. So lots happening. And Diane, thank you very much for just giving us an update on that. Now, if big things were happening on the streets in London for UK Column, we had an absolutely fantastic UK Column on location in York at the Milner Hotel. Really, really lovely, excellent environment. Have to say the hotel and the staff were wonderful, looked after us extremely well. But 400 plus people in one place, not only to listen to the brilliant speakers that we had, but also, of course, to be together. And here we have just part of the view of the room, because this is a really big event centre. So 400 people seated, and just a brilliant atmosphere. People chatting, laughing, joking with each other, getting to know each other, but very, very well informed people, and people who are adamant that they are there to help make things happen. So the whole event was really excellent. We had a brilliant range of speakers. Tess Lowry here from the World Council for Health kicking things off. But I thought we should have just a little opening clip here. Now, these are hand-shot videos from the event. We wanted to bring something authentic on screen this morning. So these were taken by individuals at the time. Of course, the real video clips will come up on UK Column in the next few days. But let's have a little look at Charles Mallet introducing the event.
We will kick off regardless. Thank you, hand wavers. Thank you, hand wavers. You've done a phenomenal job, and I'm extremely grateful to you. But the appointed hour has arrived. So I begin by issuing a very, very warm welcome to UK Column on location. And good morning. Well done.
Can you move aside, mate?
That, of course, goes to all of you here in the lovely Milner Hotel in York and those of you tuned in on the live stream. We are in for an incredible day. If you've been sent here as a representative from the pharmaceutical industry, it may be hard going at times, but stick with it.
So very quickly, in that big room of 400 people, we had laughter, but of course the speech is all very, very serious subjects. And why are we doing this? We're doing this to bring people together and to inform them about what is happening so that they can go afield and help other people understand what's happening. Now, you were one of the speakers, Ben, and I thought we'd have a little clip of you in front of the audience. Let's have a look.
In there, we've been hearing a lot about over the past 10 years, the past 5 years, past few months really, actually. People have started to know who Larry Ellison is. I don't think people knew who that was before. He's the guy who founded Oracle, or spun it out of the CIA, which is what happened with Palantir as well. So actually you've got spy agencies running the health system. That's quite concerning, isn't it? And then of course the consultants. That's the bit I used to operate in. Not in the health system particularly, certainly not in the NHS. And mainly because it's just too bureaucratic and I didn't like filling in all the forms.
So important stuff and very on the button, Ben, because of course today we see what happens when we bring these global corporations in amongst vital services, absolute chaos, but you're talking about spy agencies. Now, we had a number of really excellent speakers. Dr. Liz Evans was there, Sir Julian Rose as well, but key speaker, Andrew Wakefield. Let's have a little listen to Andrew Wakefield talking about some of the horrors that unfolded around him as he tried to warn people about what was happening with vaccinations and damages and the subject of autism.
They had obtained, through discovery, all of the documents, all of the emails, all of the correspondence from the Royal Free at that time, and from Professor Pettis, my new professor of medicine, who did not approve of me in the slightest. And what I found in there was an email exchange between Mark Pettis and Michael Oldstone. And Michael Oldstone had written, after their discussion about this study, he had written to him, "Dear Mark, this is going to cost you 2 pictures." And Mark Pettis' mother was apparently an artist of some renown, and she had drawn these 2 nudes that were coveted by Dr. Oldstone. "This is going to cost you 2 pictures." And then the study came unravelled, and a follow-up email from Mark Pettis to Michael Oldstone said, "Dear Michael, when are you coming to London? Your pictures await you." It was a bribe. To all intents and purposes, the research was deliberately sabotaged. The expense of vaccine safety, at the expense of children, again, it did not matter, because it preserved the status quo. That's what we were up against, and they accused me of fraud.
So really serious things when a health professional stands up to say something is badly wrong, and then what is he describing? The manipulation of studies and reports and bribery, whilst the whistleblower is the man accused of fraud. So really tremendous address to the audience, but all the speakers were really excellent. And we'll make sure that our audience can see more of all that in due course. Final thanks to Phil and his team from Oracle, if we just pop that on screen, because of course all this filmed and live streamed for the benefit of our global audience. What an event, absolutely fantastic. Now, Sandi, let's bring you in with us because you're having a look at the demise of human beings, or the destruction of human beings even. Sounds serious, but we need to know what's happening in order to fight it. So welcome to today's news.
Thank you, Brian and Ben. Yes, I mean, really, I was looking on the way back from York. We had 5 hours to sort of like digest what had happened really at the weekend. And my takeaway with it all and the talk of digital IT, I was pondering on exactly what identity really means, because it's being attacked on all fronts, particularly with our young, with gender identity. And I'll be talking about that a bit later. I did an interview with Steve from Edge of the Matrix, and I'll be just having a word about that later. But I mean, for thousands of years, human identity was rooted in reality, our bodies, our biology, our families, our communities, and spiritual life. And that foundation is deliberately being eroded and subverted. And now our young people are told that identity is fluid, that biology is negotiable, and that truth itself is relative. I mean, this is kind of a destabilizing agenda, and it's not. It's not something that is going to bring cohesion to the human world. A population uncertain of what it is can be easily steered towards whatever new identity the system requires it to be, and that's the problem. It's reinforced by a network of technology and policy. As we explored in the conference this weekend, every aspect of life is being datafied. And that was clearly obvious with every single speaker. And that's what really was the cohesion of all those talks that we had at the weekend. Everything's being datafied, our health, our speech, our movement, our thoughts. And when our existence is governed through these algorithms, who owns the data? Owns us, basically. So AI is represented as a helper, but it functions as an instrument of surveillance and prediction. And I just wanted to just highlight, because I think this sums it up. And I know it's an old video, but for those that haven't seen it, I think it sums it up. It's Noah Yuval Harari, and he speaks openly of hackable humans and the end of free will. So if we could run that, please. Thank you.
Science is replacing evolution by natural selection with evolution by intelligent design. Not the intelligent design of some god above the clouds, but our intelligent design and the intelligent design of our clouds, the IBM cloud, the Microsoft cloud. These are the new driving forces of evolution. And at the same time, science may enable life after being confined for 4 billion years to the limited realm of organic compounds. Science may enable life to break out into the inorganic realm. So after 4 billion years of organic life shaped by natural selection, we are entering the era of inorganic life shaped by intelligent design. So does the data about my DNA, my brain, my body, my life, does it belong to me, or to some corporation, or to the government, or perhaps to the human collective? Humans are now hackable animals. The whole idea that humans have, they have this soul or spirit and they have free will and nobody knows what's happening inside me. So whatever I choose, whether in the election or whether in the supermarket, this is my free will, that's over. Free will, that's over. That's over.
Yeah, well, there we have it, and I think he's, this is the way they, whoever has thought up all of this transhumanism and what's going on in our world. This is what the future they want for us, and this is why we as Andrew Bridgen says, we only have one opportunity now to push back, because this is the future they want for us. What Yuval Harari was saying is the future they want for us, and all the more reason why we have to push back. Now, I've put together a little bit here about. I did speak to Steve from the Edge of the Matrix about gender identity and how it's being really pushed and what that really means. And in the transhumanist system, it depends on people not having fixed identities, whether biological or cultural. And by teaching that identity, that it's fluid and self-created, the groundwork is laid then for a digital identity, the programmable self. And once the concept of self is detached from the body or the biology, it's become so much easier to merge with the human identity with virtual or AI systems. And that's what Yuval Harari was speaking of. And you can be whatever you want. You can be a digital avatar. And that is the end game for all of this, is your digital twin in the metaverse. And this is what young people are not quite getting when they are giving up their human identity. There's many things that really come into this. And I think gender ideology in schools, it replaces the authority of the parent. The parents lose their authority with state-defined morality. So I think we've got a lot going on here, a lot to unpack. You can affirm new identity and you can transfer it to the guardianship from the parents to the system, and that's a real problem. And the legal re-engineering of personhood, again, that's a Trojan horse for digital ID and citizenship with technocratic governance systems. So I was looking at the SDG goals as well, and how all of that feeds into this system. Sorry, I've lost. Oh, you're still there. Hello, have we lost connection? No, I can't hear you.
We'll just play the second video clip, and hopefully Sandi will be able to rejoin us.
Oh, right.
Surveillance, people could look back in 100 years and identify the coronavirus epidemic as the moment when a new regime of surveillance took over, especially surveillance under the skin, which I think is maybe the most important development of the 21st century, is this ability to hack human beings, to go under the skin, collect biometric data, analyze it, and understand people better than they understand themselves. This, I believe, is maybe the most important event of the 21st century.
One of the features of this fourth industrial revolution is that it doesn't change what we are doing, but it changes us.
Yes, we can see there really when we were speaking at the conference about how the COVID era changed everything, and I think that really does. That really shows you exactly how that all happened and what it really was about, because it certainly wasn't anything about a deadly virus. It was about the control of the human population. So I did put together this little slide here of what it really means to be what gender identity really means. And it's portrayed as inclusivity is the narrative, but actually underneath it, there's a darker agenda of control and social engineering. Gender definitions allows the law to define what a human being is. Once legal identity is detached from biology, it can be digitized and merged with AI systems. And this is a legal Trojan horse for digital ID and citizenship with a technocratic governance, because it all lines up also with the SDG goals, which I'll go into in the next slide. So really, the goals are the goals that seem to hinge on the gender equality, which is goal 5, which promotes equal rights and opportunities for women and girls, and increasingly addresses broader gender identities. And I think this is why the whole gender identity LGBTQ agenda is being pushed, because then they can actually get rid of gender in order to transmute it into the transhumanism agenda. And you've got SDG 10, which is reduced inequalities, which seeks fairness across social and economic groups. So you've got a homogenization of the human race. And then you've got SDG 16.9, which is the legal identity for all, which calls for a legal identity by 2030. This is the real reason for the digital ID. It is to bring these, to force these goals for you to comply to the digital ID. So let's have a look at those goals again. And these are the goals that we really need to concentrate on. It's goal 10, goal 5, and goal 16. And the next slide, please, is, Agenda 5 is gender equality, achieve gender equality and empower all women and girls. But what is a woman and girl when they're blurring all the edges? This is what I'm looking at. SDG 10, reduce inequality within and amongst countries. So you're homogenizing everything across the board globally. And then you've got SDG 16.9, which is to provide legal identity for all, including birth registration. And that birth registration can be changed because now you are assigned at birth. You're not born a man or a woman. So they're dissolving stable identity to enable programmability, state ownership of the child, re-engineering of personhood, and the distraction and controlled opposition. Again, we're getting that. I'll just in the final video, you'll see how Steve is being attacked and what division it's causing on our streets. So if we can just look at what Steve has to put up with on the streets of the UK. Thank you.
Well, I hope you fucking perish.
Can someone call the police? Experience suicide rate organisation.
What the fuck is your
That is
problem?
assault.
You were making a mockery
That is absolute
of this entire
assault.
fucking country. You would make everything worse. What the fuck? Why are you doing this? My friend fucking died last year.
Yes, and that woman didn't get charged for that assault. That was chili sauce in his eyes and all over him. And this is what it's doing. It's causing massive division all round, as is everything. It's order out of chaos, is what we're looking at.
Well, that's exactly what they hope to achieve. However, if we're well informed, Sandi, I think we can bring a different order out of that chaos, one that's to our advantage. But terrible things, and thank you for taking us through that section. Now, Diane, let's bring you on screen, because although the BBC is very big at the moment back on the subject of abuse under Epstein, it seems that if you're a Scottish lady who was abused as a young girl at Fornethy House in Scotland, the BBC is absolutely not so keen in informing the public exactly what took place and the sheer numbers involved. So welcome to today's news.
Thanks, Brian. Yeah, I just wanted to, I guess, touch a little bit first on the Epstein coverage that we've been seeing recently, just in the past day, actually. So this article was posted yesterday, the 19th of October. This is, again, Virginia Giuffre, who we've all seen by now, talking about the memoir that she has written, saying that she thought she might die a sex slave, quote, at the hands of Epstein and his circle, which, of course, is absolutely terrible. But again, looking at the issues of what's going on in Scotland, that's not quite a priority for the BBC, as you said. We've also seen yesterday Prince Andrew, or I guess who is now just Andrew because he's given up his title because of the investigation. The Met Police looking into claims that Andrew sought information on his accuser, Virginia Giuffre. So again, further coverage on that. We did see, however, now that we have a verdict in on the criminal case against Patricia Robertson from the Fornethy Residential School, former teacher who is now 77 years old. She was found guilty of 18 of 25 charges in the court last week in the High Court in Glasgow, which I'm going to go into in some detail today. But I think it's worth noting how this all it ties in with the mainstream media issues that we're seeing in terms of unequal coverage of what is arguably one of the biggest scandals in Scotland, if not all of the UK. We have here a 76-year-old woman, according to the BBC, facing trial over school abuse claims. This is from the 13th of January, 2025 on the BBC. And then we see finally that there was a little bit of coverage from the BBC, the verdict on the retired teacher convicted of abusing pupils on the 15th of October, 2025. So that's the BBC coverage. We see a couple of articles, again, covering over 10,000 girls that were potentially abused under the hands of the teachers at Fornethy. So when we go into some of the Scottish mainstream media coverage, we see basically the same repetition over and over again, saying the same thing about the abuse charges. So we have, again, 18 of 25 counts of which she was found guilty. The other ones were, they basically didn't have the evidence to support what they were saying. And that's not because it didn't happen, but it was because of the fact that several of the women who wanted to testify against Patricia Robertson to talk about the very serious counts of abuse, including the sexual and the hard physical abuse, was not covered in the trial, because even though there were, I believe, over 70 women who wanted to testify and hundreds who they could have found to do so, because of the amazing organization that the women have been doing, they were told by the PF and the court that they could not testify. So several of them were taken off the schedule, and only the ones that had the middle of the road abuse, if we can say that. Of course, all abuse was horrible, but the middle of the road counts were the things of which she was found guilty, of which they called cruel and unnatural treatment of the girls at Fornethy Residential School. Those were the center around most of the charges that were given the guilty, but that was only because the women who had, again, more serious allegations of abuse were not able to take the stand, and so therefore they weren't able to get the justice that they deserve for those crimes as well. So different mainstream media sources, STV, the Daily Record, talking about this, and also as well, and this is interesting, saying that the former Fornethy House head teacher, Pearl Fletcher, who was the one who ran Fornethy Residential School for many years, now they're saying, after this guilty verdict has come out against Patricia Robertson, who was not the head teacher, Pearl Fletcher was, she died, I believe it was in 2021, and now they're saying she would have faced action had she not died. Well, this was just something that came out in the last few days after the guilty verdict. So again, interesting timing, I would say, in terms of what happened. It's very important as well to highlight the fact that UK Column, for the first time in its almost 20 years of existence, has finally been credited and recognized by mainstream media. And this was in America, of all places. And this is because Ali Flanagan, who was one of the women who testified over Interpol connections from Florida, who was originally from Glasgow but has lived in the United States for many, many years, contacted her local ABC affiliate, Tampa Bay 28 in Florida, to talk about the allegations and the fact that she was going to testify. So this is the first time that this had ever been covered, or even been made aware of this issue, this case happening over in America. So this was an incredible breakthrough for UK Column, I have to say, unfortunately under very bad circumstances, but it does show that we were able to, have this amazing reach, which is important. The only thing that I really care about is getting the story out. One thing that I would say about the coverage, however, is that there was a bit of some inaccuracies, and I'm not necessarily saying that the reporter over on the Tampa Bay side of things did anything horribly wrong, but it is a very complex case with a lot of details and a lot of intricacies that need to be considered. And so it would be difficult, I would think, to get so much into a report, even though it was, as far as mainstream media goes, fairly extensive. So I guess we could see from here, let's watch a clip of an interview with me talking to Lynn Sharon earlier today. Lynn Sharon is, of course, one of the leaders that has been leading the Justice Group for many years, and she was in court every single day of the trial. And let's hear what she had to say. And then when we come back, I'd like to talk about my day that I spent in the court last week watching some of the witnesses speak. Lynn, thanks for joining me today to talk about the recent verdict of the 18 guilty counts and some that were not guilty from the recent trial under Patricia Robertson. I know that you were attending court every single day along with a lot of the other survivors from Fornethy Residential School. And so I just wanted to take a couple of minutes to kind of talk to you about some of the things that happened in court, the outcome, and some of the media coverage around this in the mainstream media. So I guess, first of all, being in court every single day, I was only there for one day, and I found it very difficult to sit in the gallery because of the way the police were acting, and that just the overall environment was very tense. How did you survive it for all of that time, for all those days you were there?
It was very, very tiring. But at the same time, because we were all together, we kind of drew strength for each other. We had a lot of tears, but we had like some laughs as well along the way. The girls, the support for all the girls was amazing, how we all just came together. But as I say, it was very, very tiring. Every day, you know, up and away, up and away, up and away, but I wouldn't have missed it for the world. I just had to be there every day. So, yeah, we all felt the same. We had girls that had travelled quite far just to be there, you know, so...
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and, you know, I think as well, being really close to Robertson herself must have been incredibly stressful.
Yeah, it was very stressful because she didn't show any empathy at all. She just basically just strolled in and out of court as if it was nothing. You know, nothing at all, no sympathy, no sorrow, not 1 ounce did she show throughout the whole trial. Which, for us, that just reminds us back to exactly how she was with us. You know, you never see the woman smiling, you never seen her ever, like, joining in anything. Or she would go into court in the morning, she would smile and kind of giggle with the people that worked in there, but minute she went into that courtroom, nothing. Not a thing. Just
Absolutely.
Blank, just her expression, just totally blank, hard and stern. You know, it was not nice. It did bring a lot of memories back, a lot of, like, you know, all of a sudden you're sitting there and you see that face again and you think, oh my God. Personally for me, the first day that I saw her, I thought I didn't know how I would feel like after like 50 years passed by and then I actually get to see her again face to face. But the fear and the emotions and all that is all, it's right there. So it never ever leaves you. You can go through your life and have phases in your life where none of us will think about it at all. But the minute we all seen her, it was totally different, really different.
Yeah, I'm not surprised with the trauma that you all went through, and I think that's common for trauma. That, you know, I have trauma myself from my childhood, and I understand that sometimes you don't think about it, and then something will trigger it, and it comes back. And so you ladies were incredibly brave to sit there with her in the room for all of that time. So you were
we all
all
stood
just
together, you know. So and we were all there together at the end.
It's amazing, and so great that you could support each other.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on the 18 charges of guilty and the others that were not found guilty?
Well, the 18 charges of guilty, absolutely amazing. And we're so happy for the girls that got the guilty. They deserved it because what she did to them, it's just amazing. We got her in there and we got that guilty verdict for the 18 girls. 6 of them not proven. One in particular I actually felt really disheartened about because a wee girl was only 5. And what she went through was no 5-year-old should ever have to go through anything like that. She was there with her sister and it was not proven. It was just, it doesn't make any sense. It does not. For the ones like that never got their day in the court, they never got to testify against her. Well, here we go again. The fight will start all over again, and we are not going to let that go. That's no way are we letting that go. You know, we've fought all this time to get her into the court. We got the 18 guilties. 6 not proven. So hopefully something can get done about that. But for the rest that are never got their day in court, sad, but the fight goes on.
So quite a disturbing interview there. So, hearing about their experiences. I will just say quickly, Brian, that I was in court for one day, as I said before we played that clip, and it was quite distressing. There was a police officer controlling the gallery. Nobody was allowed to even show any emotion. If you even, sighed or looked at something or even opened your bag, the policeman would come over and tap you on the shoulder and tell you to leave until you could compose yourself. The witnesses who were actually examined by a Crown prosecution were basically, I think, showing that the women were somehow uncivilized, saying they didn't know how to use utensils, saying that they needed to be stripped naked and deloused before they were admitted fully into the school, saying that, we had to do all these things and, was that potentially the reason why they were treated the way they were, the reasons that they were force-fed, which was one of the charges that she was found guilty of. So I think there's still a lot to uncover, Brian, that the woman will be sentenced on the 3rd of December, and they will be following up with the civil case after this as well. So we will continue to support the women in any way possible. And I think that we're very privileged and happy to do so as we continue to fight for justice for these amazing ladies, Brian.
Diane, thank you very much for that report. And yes, tremendous work by the Fornethy ladies. Alongside the results of the court case, of course, UK column highlighting that for some very strange reason, the BBC and other mainstream media do not want to report on this case. Thousands of little girls involved, thousands of lives destroyed in some cases, and yet no reporting by the mainstream media. So, Ben, in my mind, the question is, does this thing go to the real heart of the Scottish establishment? And is this why they are so reluctant to talk about it, and they would prefer to focus on Epstein and what's happened on the other side of the pond? We'll have more reports on that. We'll leave that now. Let's come on to the subject of support for the UK column. In all of our supporters worldwide, we're still finding that people are not visiting the website, and yet the website is a huge resource of thousands of articles and videos, and we're encouraging people to come to the website, but also to use the search bar. If there's a topic being reported in the news in 2025, try searching in the search bar on the UK column and see what articles come up, because very often you will find that we were on the case years ago and there's much very good information there. Now, we can only do what we do with your financial support, and it's the people who are paying for monthly or annual memberships that keep us going. We don't want to just keep going, we want to expand. So have a look on the column at the Support Our Work box, and if you click there, you can join up and become a member and be part of the UK column team. And as we've just shown this morning, fantastic support, and we will be having more live events in the future. Now, you can also make a purchase through UK Column Shop. So have a look and see whether you fancy something from the shop. Everything is there to help support the UK column. Now, tonight at 7 p.m, we've got Germ Warfare and Weekly Banter with Mike Robinson and Charles Mallet. So tune in to that. Really excellent discussion as always. And Ben, you're being streamed tomorrow at 1 p.m, the corporate takeover of music and culture.
Yes, well, how the music scene and industry has been weaponized against us. It's probably the best way to describe it.
And particularly against the minds of young people.
Absolutely.
Thank you for that. Now, we've just got a little promotional video clip here for the 1,000-word podcast, which we've been talking about on previous UK column newses. Let's have a look at this little clip.
I've kind of had enough already.
Yeah.
Is what I'm thinking.
Well, he stuck around for the duration. Is this my most challenging portrait yet? Tune in on Sunday at 7 p.m. for the first episode of 1,000 Words with James Dellimpole.
I don't mind what people think. I do mind if they cannot produce a coherent explanation for it.
Now, the fascinating thing is that some of the UK column team are going to be the subject of the artist's brush and a little bit of an interrogation at the same time. So stay posted on that. And with that, Ben, I think it brings us to you and the subject of, Ed Milliband.
Red Ed.
If the audience is ready and braced.
Yes, the swivel-eyed lunatic that is our energy secretary. Get him up on screen. There he is. You know who he is. He used to be the leader of the Labour Party. He's now the Secretary of State for Energy. Very importantly, he's also a member of the Fabian Society, one of the 141 Fabians elected into office last year, including half of the cabinet, actually, right? There really is a Fabian government we're being subjected to. And let's just remind ourselves who the Fabian Society are. This is the secret or semi-secret society founded in 1884 with the express purpose of establishing a one-world socialist government. That's what they've been there to do. They are wolves in sheep's clothing. That is their sigil on the right-hand side. That's how they think about themselves. That's how they describe themselves. That's how they behave. So when they come to you bearing gifts, they're not gifts. Have to understand it like that. And importantly, their other sigil was this thing. And their motto was, "When I strike hard." So they had the tortoise and this motto, "When I strike hard," which is to say that they move slowly. They've been going for over 140 years now, right? So they've been at this for a long time, but they're moving methodically and slowly and bringing through this socialist, ultimately communist agenda, right? And Ed Miliband is absolutely in the midst of this. He was born and raised in a communist household. His father, Ralph, was a left-wing academic and heavily involved in socialist organising in the UK. He actually stood at his own father's graveside back in 1940 saying that he, with his fist clenched, swearing a private oath on his father's graveside that he would be faithful to the workers' cause. And Ed is certainly his father's son. He's still faithful to the workers' cause, as he would see it anyway, with this recent announcement just coming out yesterday talking about a new wave of clean energy jobs, state jobs with good wages, strong trade unions, no need to leave your hometown because these are going to be popping up all across the country. This is part of the Labour government's change agenda. Let's hear Ed Miliband talking about it on Sky News yesterday to Trevor Phillips.
And what's so exciting about what we're unveiling this morning is so many people in our country, Trevor, have been asking this question for a long time, which is, where are the good jobs of the future going to come from? What's the job my son or daughter can do in the future? This is the answer. Clean energy jobs, working on nuclear power stations, working on offshore wind, working on carbon capture. And this goes to the heart of what I think this government's mission is, which is to change our economy so it doesn't just work for the wealthiest in our society, but it works for everybody, and answers these fundamental questions people have about Britain and the good jobs at good wages that people want to see.
Good jobs, good wages. Your sons, your daughters are going to be working for the government. That's essentially what we're looking at. Through public-private partnerships, because we haven't got any money, this is all going to be coming from international investors in order to build supposedly sustainable energy systems with experimental technologies that don't work and are almost certainly completely unnecessary.
It's incredible. We could have an instant 20-minute debate on why Milliband is in fantasy land and trying to deceive the public. But he did say there it's not just for the wealthy. So he absolutely knows at the moment all this is being run by the wealthy. We're talking about global corporations, not necessarily individuals. It's for their benefit. It's not for the benefit of the wider population in UK. Unbelievable arrogance from that man, as usual.
As per usual. And he took to the mirror as well. We can see here to say, turn this into a political point ultimately, right? So Labour and the Greens, actually, as we'll come on to in a moment, supposedly the party of the workers, and anyone who is against our policies essentially are anti-worker, and this is described as a green jobs bonanza. But actually the discussion I've seen on this suggests that the kinds of jobs that we're talking about here, compared to existing jobs in the energy system. They're much less secure on much lower wages, and actually this is just a huge spin operation, unfortunately, by the Labour government, that is also, of course, going to pave over huge swathes of productive farmland. This again from last week, the UK's largest solar farm's just been announced in Lincolnshire, and this is going to cover 3,000 acres. It's been classified as a nationally significant infrastructure project, which means central government, i.e. Ed Milliband at the moment, get to make the planning decisions about whether these things get built. And those 3,000 acres of productive farmland are now no longer going to be producing food. They're going to be producing very unreliable solar energy. And this really just makes me think about things like Holodomor, because one of the key strategies of communist regimes is to attack populations, in particular to go after the food supply, and this ends up in mass starvation and displacement, and the track record for this kind of action is absolutely there. So I think we're living in extraordinarily dangerous times, certainly as far as the government in power is concerned, but also because of the rise of this eco-populist narrative from the left wing of society. So let's have, shall I say, the left wing of the political system. Let's just have a little listen now to Zach Polanski, the new leader of the Green Party.
I grew up in the north, not far from here. I remember I used to wake up with this hopeful feeling, not like I was in a cornflakes advert or anything, but there was something in the air back then, a kind of ordinary hope. I've spent the last 5 years up and down the country, listening to people on streets like this. I'm not sure we feel like that anymore. There's more a hopelessness. People who are too tired to fight, too tired to sleep, kids going to bed hungry, parents lying awake in the next room knowing, powerless to change things. And people say to me, "Hey Zach, you're the leader of a political party. What are you lot going to do about this?" And I say, we need a fair taxation system. We need to tax the people with the broadest shoulders in a fair way. But they cut me off. Hey, I'm a plumber. I've been working 30 years. I'm finally doing okay. Why are you making me the problem? Or a hairdresser. I've just opened my first hair salon. Why are you taxing me? Why are you taxing my ambition? And I wondered, why did they think I was talking about them? And now I get it. It's because it's too hard to picture.
It's too hard to picture a world where people like that aren't going to come after your hard-earned money. He does in that video go on to talk about, sorry Brian, he goes on to talk about the super wealthy. Right, and there is this narrative at the moment, which is that if we just do a bit of a wealth tax, we want to tax people's assets. If we do that, then that will just fix everything. And that's been coming from a number of different areas on the political left, but most notably over the past few weeks from this guy Polanski, who's just popped up basically out of nowhere, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I just smiled because he's walking along an empty street saying that he's been speaking to people on streets like this. So presumably he spoke to nobody. And he certainly wasn't present at the protests in London, I don't think.
No, he certainly wasn't. No, I think he probably doesn't talk about ID cards too much, to be honest with you. So anyway, who is this guy? Let's get him back on screen, have a little look at him. Zach Polanski was actually born David Paulden. I always find it really odd when people change their names, like particularly politicians. Like, why have you done that? Like, are you trying to hide something? You know, it just seems a bit odd. He's a former hypnotist. So he used to charge women money under the pretext that he could help them increase the size of their breasts under hypnosis, which in my money makes him a con man. And I suppose does beg the question, is he trustworthy? Can we believe anything that he says? Do we want people like this running the country? He's also a trained actor and economically illiterate, like a lot of people in this area. And I can prove both of those points to you. So the first one, in terms of him being a trained actor, is that that was a party political broadcast. And there was someone that I came across on LinkedIn saying how proud he was to have written and directed the Ordinary Hope film. So, presented as Polanski, the great orator and the person who's talking to the common man, but actually she's been written by a scriptwriter.
Right. Is this the UK's version of Zelensky? So we've destroyed Ukraine using an actor, and now we're about to bring one in for UK.
Yeah, maybe. I think it could be. He calls himself an eco-populist. Right, and this is populism is the idea that as a political leader, you're there to go into bat for the common people and to help them fight against the corrupt international elite, which is actually a valid analysis of what's happening in the country. But then what you need to look at next is, well, what's the policy recommendation? And this film, which you provide a link to, that was just the first sort of minute and a half of a 3-minute clip, and you should go and watch the whole thing. He's all talking about a wealth tax, and he introduces the concept of this elite who, when they go to sleep in one night, earn more than one person, one street, or even one neighbourhood do in an entire year. Right. And that's very emotive, because people are certainly feeling the pinch at the moment, and they can see that there are people in the country and further afield who've got a lot of money. But just going after wealth is not going to fix things, unfortunately. And I can do some basic sums to prove that that's the case. Right. So if we just take ourselves to the internet and get it to do some sums for us, looking at the top 350 individuals and families featured in the Sunday Times Rich List. So these are the top richest people in the country, all of the billionaires, and a significant number of multi-millionaires as well. Their total combined wealth is 772 billion. Total wealth. And he's saying, I want to do a 1% tax on that to help alleviate the problems of the country. Well, the thing is, 1% of 772 billion is 7.7 billion. And based on current government spending, that will keep you going for 2 days.
Yeah.
So it's not a solution. It sounds nice, but it's not actually going to fix anything. And what he never talks about is an actual industrial strategy in a way to fix the economic system and redistribute capacity and wealth back out into society that way, which is how you would actually go about fixing something like this. But he's become extraordinarily popular. He's being very heavily pushed algorithmically, right? So he's in a lot of people's timelines. Like I say, he's connecting emotively with people across different generations. In particular, he's being put in front of what they call Gen Z. So basically anyone that's under sort of 25, 30 years old. And he was actually one of the headline speakers at the My Life, My Say Next Generation conference, which was held on Saturday, same day as our conference, but this was held at the Ministry of Sound in South London. And that organisation, as I've spoken about many times previously, is essentially a front for MI6, the US State Department, the Rothschild family, David Cameron, Tony Blair's floating around in the background. But this supposed populist leader, man of the people, is being held up to the younger generation as someone that they could realistically vote for and is going to affect change in the country, when that's fundamentally not the case, and it's certainly not what those people that I've just listed want to happen, right? And this is resonating with them. The youth that are getting on board with this. We've had this guy here, Hayden Osborne Brooks, talking about the extraordinary growth in Green Party membership. Let's have a little listen to Hayden speaking now.
Absolutely.
The Green Party, under the leadership of Zach Polanski, is now officially the third largest political party in the UK. This comes after Zach announced on Laura Kuenssberg this morning that we have 124,000 members, which is more than the Conservative Party. We're standing for social, economic, environmental and racial justice, and this bold message can take us beyond reform and beyond Labour. We've already beaten Labour in certain polls. If this message resonates with you, join us today at join.greenparty.org.uk and become a part of the largest and fastest growing left-wing political movement in the UK.
So I'm laughing. I do wonder whether that was Harry Potter actually speaking to us at that stage. This is serious. This is very serious stuff. There's a rebranding of the whole political system in UK. Destroy Labour, destroy UK, leave us with this mush.
Yeah, well,
I see it.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, they're in the ascendant, right? So it's connecting with the youth. They're now the third biggest political party. They're there to deliver what he described as social, economic, and racial justice, which is generally the opposite of what that should actually mean. And, Hayden, he seems like a lovely chap, but he does rather beg the question, which is, are the Greens too middle class? Because I think that they've always been tarred with that brush, but apparently not, because we've got Mohsen Ali, who is a solid working class Yorkshireman. And this is what a solid working class Yorkshireman looks like these days. And we'll put a link to that. It's an interesting little clip. He was talking to Owen Jones. Owen Jones appears to be backing this group as well, and has interviewed Polanski over the past few weeks, and appears to be travelling around the country with him. So you can see the kind of stars are aligning around Zelensky and the Greens at the moment. But this guy, Ali, he actually popped up last year on the news because if you remember the Walthamstow protest where Ricky Jones, the Labour councillor, was calling for violence to be committed against his political opponents. Well, the woman standing next to him smiling and clapping while he did that was this woman, Jo Cardwell, who's a radical Marxist. She was the chief steward of that event, and she was actually one of the main campaign organisers for Mohsen Ali when he was running to be a councillor for Gipton and Hare Hill's Green Party, and he's now the deputy leader of the party. So I think it seems pretty clear the types of people and the agenda that is at play in the background of Zach Polanski and his eco-populist rhetoric.
Thank you very much, Ben. Serious stuff and a lot more work for the UK Column News to do on that particular subject. We did promise our viewers at the start of the news that we were going to end on some happy notes, so we're going to jump forward to our section on Denmark. And Sandi, let's bring you back in again, because it does seem something very interesting has taken place in Denmark.
Yes, this is actually the slide I have is from the June, one of the June episode,
Guardian.
from the Guardian in June, and it's just that the Danish government's culture ministry, headed up by Jakob Engel Schmidt, announced around June 2025 that it will submit for consultation a bill to amend the Copyright Act so that everybody has the right to their own body, their own voice, and their own facial features, which is really interesting. I mean, this originally came through to address deep fakes, which is what happened to the Pope in that sort of puffer jacket thing, because that was manipulated. So out of that sort of deep fake thing, it is now being looked at to address broader implications for breaches of GDPR, privacy laws, freedom of expression. And this is actually being read. The legislation is reported to have broad parliamentary support in Denmark and will be scheduled for submission in the autumn of 2025 after consultation. So although it's not actually in law at the moment, it's not fully enacted in law as of now, there remains open questions about the details and the scope and the implementation of this. So it's there, it's on the table, and this could be a way of looking at everything and opposing facial recognition and data harvesting and data mining of our personal data.
Okay, thank you for that, Sandi. And of course, people should look into this for themselves, but it does seem that there's another possible wedge to get into the system to help break apart the centralised policies that would have us controlled by the state. Now, final comment, we'll be back to UK Column on location in York. It was absolute wonderful event. It was so lovely that we had a full house, 400 plus people with us. Lots of really fascinating discussions. The thing I always find from meeting people is that no matter who you speak to, they've got some fantastic information. They've got life stories. They've got professional experience to share, different views, but everybody really now seeing through the terrible propaganda and these malicious policies that the government system is coming. But key to it all was that there was laughter, and everybody who came along said it was an absolutely fantastic event. They really enjoyed it. They loved the speakers. They loved the location. They loved meeting with the UK Column team. We enjoyed meeting with the audience, and we came away feeling that, we got so much out of it. It was a huge boost for us. And we have had already a lot of emails coming in about the event. We'll try and trickle those through the forthcoming UK column news editions, but it was very clear that this event was a major, major success. Thank you to the hotel. And it's given us a big boost to set up our 20-year event, which will be in Plymouth in 2026. We first started the column in January 2006, so 20 years coming up. And we're aiming to make the event in Plymouth very, very special. So yes, there will be serious stuff and speakers, but we're also looking to really make it an event over a few days where people not only can meet and chat and laugh with other people and new friends, they can also enjoy a little bit, at least, of the wonderful scenery and coast and seaside that we've got in the Plymouth area. So more on that in due course. But the UK column team did a roughly 700-mile round trip to get up in York and to do our pickups and drop-offs. We had a very busy weekend. We were back quite late yesterday. And yes, UK column news is live today, and it's our pleasure to be here on the case delivering to our audience. Now, I will just say we did have a few minor glitches in the programme. We were also affected by this Amazon problem this morning, and it just goes to show that if we allow these global corporations to control our lives in this way, nothing is really safe, and so a lot of reordering necessary. We must end there. Huge thank you to our audience today. If you're a UK column member, we'll be back for UK column extra in a few minutes. Otherwise, we'll see you for the news 1 o'clock on Wednesday. Bye-bye.